of the APC realized that there is a need to address some of the situation in the APC. You can see some of the governors emerging from that meeting, and that's the chairman of the APC Governors Forum, Senator Hope Uzodinma. Let me allow you to listen, because he was the one who spoke to journalists after that meeting yesterday night.
You must have heard of the resignation of the national chairman of our party and the national secretary of the party. Those are voluntary actions that have been taken, and with due respect to our former national chairman and secretary, we commended the wisdom in what they have done, and they served us well in the party. We're happy with their services, and the party is united. There's no crisis in the party. They are happy. We also are happy.
Governor of Imo State and the chair of the Progressive Governors Forum, governors of the APC, Senator Hope Uzodinma. Let's get talking. Now, there was someone who raised an alarm about the ongoings within the APC, and he did that right here on the program several weeks ago. And when he said it to us on politics, a lot of people were wondering what exactly is going on. But when Senator Yolo Mishore came on the program, he said he's the black sheep in the APC. A few days later, the resignation of both men, Senator Adamu and Senator Yolo Mishore, happened. Now, tonight, let's hear from him. The vice chairman of APC, national vice chairman, Malam Salihu Lukman. Thank you so much indeed for coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Let me first and foremost get your view on the outcome of the NEC meeting. You saw what they've decided. And I'm very sure that you're a bit close to people at the grassroots. You're hearing what they are hearing, and there is so much pressure on those who have a little, because the money is not just flowing. And people are wondering, your party promised renewed hope. Is this the hope that you guys promised?
Well, first, it's true that there are circumstances now facing Nigerians that is quite worrisome, which has to do with the increase in prices of petrol, and which jack up cost of living. Of course, government has been quite responsive. It initiated the palliative measures, which again became a subject of so much criticism in the country. And I think listening to the outcome of the National Economic Council confirmed that we have a government that is responsive. It has listened to the criticism of Nigerians, and on the basis of which it has reviewed the palliatives. And as you presented, there is now some kind of broad and inclusive perspective in administering the palliatives, and also ensuring that all aspects of life are touched. Of course, I know that there will be new round of challenges, and I'm very confident that the government will live up to those challenges and respond appropriately. That is what government business is all about.
I mean, how do you feel as a party leader that things are not going well with a lot of Nigerians? No, the sufferings and the pains.
I think we must admit we were very clear from the beginning that moving forward is not going to be easy.
And Nigerians are going to suffer?
Not quite. There has to be hard decisions taken. And in taking those hard decisions, we envisage some of the difficulties, and contingency measures are put in place to ensure that those are being addressed. I'm confident in the next 1-2 years, all these things will be put behind us, and we'll move more confidently as a nation, full of pride that things are being...
You don't think with the pain some Nigerians are going through right now, that perhaps some of them might be thinking in their mind, maybe they made a mistake voting for your party?
Well, I mean, you see, those are some of the realities which people are free to, make their own judgments. But I think as leaders, we cannot be in denial. We have to really admit there are challenges. And I think that is what the government is doing. And steps are being taken to ensure that all the challenges are going to be addressed.
One of the issues that have been raised is whether or not your party or the government is really ready for the task, and the fact that the time that you had from winning an election and coming, because, I mean, we understand that the president was in France and he said he wanted to cool off and plan properly. But those who have criticized experts have said, your government should have seen this coming. You should have planned properly. The Nigerian people that have been left in this kind of quagmire, I'm not sure how much of this you know
you
about
want me to listen
people.
To
no,
you?
Go ahead. you realize that people are going through a lot of pain, isn't it?
Sheun, you must, just a few weeks back, these citizens were full of praises about all the initiatives the government is taking. If there are situations now that require immediate responses, I think we need to admit the government is responding to them. We are not going to be able to resolve the challenges of Nigeria overnight. What we can assure you is that we are ready as a party to provide the leadership, and is being provided as it is now by President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And the right initiatives are being taken. We are very confident that not too long from now, we'll begin to see positive results, and Nigerians will understand that the difficult decisions taken is really in the interest of the nation.
Is it true that some of you in the APC are preparing for some kind of election in anticipation? Because
I don't know.
I'm very sure
I am aware.
You must have heard those
No. I am aware there are by-elections in some constituencies.
I'm talking about
if we are talking of those by-elections, yes, we are preparing. But anything outside that, I think, is wishful thinking.
Because there are those who are saying that from the outcome of that presidential election tribunal,
look. I think let's first
it was the national chairman of the Labour Party who said your party is already prepared.
Let's face serious issues. There are people whose business in politics is all about contesting election. I think our business is that we contested election. Now it's time to provide leadership to the country to resolve our challenges. And that is what we are facing.
The machinery or the machine that you will use in making that happen, procuring governance for Nigeria, is it looks like there is salt in your engine. There is we're hearing the very cracking noise of your crankshaft, and it's giving a lot of worry to some of your followers. The manner in which some will say Adamu and Omisore were eased out. Do you think that in some way that they were pressured to resign?
Well, look.
Some kind of political pressure.
Let's put things in context. What you may call pressure or crisis, that is the business of politics. Politics is about contestation. And in contestation, somebody will win, somebody will lose. The main issue, if you recall, and this is what other parties are in denial. I keep saying I'm a proud member of APC because we are never in denial in terms of the challenges we are facing as a party. We are constantly renewing our initiative in terms of our approach in building the party. And that is why when we find situations where we have to change leadership, we don't shy away from it. If there are issues that warrant that we raise criticism about how our leaders are managing the party, we open up and say it, and we debate it within the party, and decisions get taken in one way or the other. So the last decision, which we must respect both Senator Abdullahi Adamu and Senator Omisore, they voluntarily resigned.
Was that a voluntary resignation?
Of course, it's voluntary. Did you hear from them disputing that? They voluntarily resigned.
I mean,
nobody compelled them.
Because
to the best of
what
my
we are
knowledge,
hearing is it's a bit different.
Well, I don't know what
are you aware that maybe they were invited by some security agencies?
I'm not aware. I'm not aware.
Because there are those who are in your party. There are those who are in your party who are saying that this was not voluntary.
I think in terms of engaging this conversation publicly, we should use the facts available to us. If there are other facts which are not available and subject of speculation, we should allow the facts to emerge first. But so far, to the best of my knowledge, and these are not disputed by both Senator Abdullahi Adamu and Senator Omishori. And like you hear from the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, across the party, we acknowledge and respect the decision of the two leaders to resign. And therefore, our concern now is to put that behind us and move forward. And in moving forward, I think the main issue is to return to some of the issues that were very critical in terms of the management of the party under the leadership of Senator Adamu and Senator Omishori. And what are these issues? Basically, restoring constitutional order within the party, returning to the founding vision of the party. And in terms of restoring constitutional order, the key issues is that we need to activate all the structures of the party and allow them to function in line with provisions of the constitution of the party. I mean, what are these structures we are talking about? We are talking of the National Executive Committee, the National Caucus, National Advisory Council. These are basically the organs. For the last more than 1 year, the only organ of the party that has been functioning is the National Working Committee. Even the National Working Committee isn't functioning in a way that you will say it is taking decision in line with the provision of the party constitution, which is why, for instance, my critique is that we are not being allowed to debate issues, take decision, and which is why a number of us raise some of the question around finances, around some of the decisions, some of the actions being taken.
So they left out, they were basically, they were the two people who were taking decisions. They were not consulting the rest of the end of the
I think again,
was that the case?
That is likely the case, but it will be unfair to them if, as members of National Working Committee, we claim ignorance of many of the things that is being done. I think in a number of ways, we have to also take responsibility, because to be fair to them, there are decisions they take, they come to us and inform us. Whether we ratify it or not, we cannot say we are not aware. But the key issue is that there are statutory provisions of the Constitution that require us as National Working Committee to really sit and take, for instance, the whole question of budgeting. We never did budgeting.
And you were spending money.
We were spending money. The whole question of reporting, both in terms of activity and in terms of finances, which is basically about accountability.
Was there any kind of auditing?
We were told there was auditing. Now we are taking steps to really put our hands on all those to understand what really happened. So without going into all those details, I think moving forward, part of the thing in restoring constitutional order we were expecting, I think we should do, and we should appeal to all our leaders. We should activate all those structures of the party, the constitutional structures of the party, and allow them to function so that we, both we as members of National Working Committee and our elected representative are made accountable to those organs. Because the beauty of democracy is accountability.
Because if there is a system that made Senator Abdullah Adamu and some of those who have been accused of high-handedness in the running of the affair of the APC, has that system been fixed? Because you came out today to ask that constitutional order should be returned if there is a replacement for Senator Adamu, and that system that allowed him, based on the allegations against him, still exists. Don't you think that the same thing will still go on?
Look, when we say, I think we need to explain when we say constitutional order should be restored. The Constitution said National Executive Committee should meet every quarter. There is National Advisory Council, which should have been inaugurated within 1 month after our election. So basically, by the end of April 2022, the National Advisory Council should have been inaugurated. The National Caucus is also there. And part of it, and that is why today I raised the issue about the power blocks within the party. Some of the power blocks are located in those structures. For instance, the elders, our elders are in the National Caucus, and some of them are in the Advisory Council. In fact, the Advisory Council is expected to function as the conscience of the party. In fact, when there are disputes or grievances within the party, they have power within the Constitution to intervene.
This was supposed to be the Board of Trustees, kind of.
Yes. And for instance, if there is failure to convene meetings of National Executive Committee, the National Advisory Council had the power to direct that the meeting of the National Executive Committee should hold.
So these are some of the steps you think that the party should take.
Yeah.
But you have raised an objection in the statement you released today, because the governors, and what we are hearing is that they're tipping Senator Abdullahi Ganduje, former governor of Kano State, to replace Senator Abdullah Adamu. And you say that if that happens, it will look as though they're taking the party and members and leaders of the party for granted. And you've warned the governors to be careful.
Well, I think it's more of a caution, because you see, it's at two or three levels. The first level is that in the negotiation to agree on the leadership of the National Assembly, the North Central was not, represented the way it should. And the understanding is that, of course, they have position of the national chairman. By the decision that is being contemplated now, it means moving the position of the national chairman from North Central to Northwest. I'm from Northwest. And I think as leaders and as a nation, we should be able to be fair and just to all parts of the country. If we go by this, it will suggest almost the North Central is becoming increasingly a pariah, a political pariah region, because if you look at the appointment of service chiefs, they are not well represented, but the Northwest is well represented.
But those who will say that the SGF is in the North Central.
Yes, the SGF is North Central. We already have in the Northwest Speaker, House of Reps. We have Deputy Senate President from the Northwest. So I think my appeal is that we need to be quite sensitive, because already I know that there is a lot of grievances by leaders of the party from North Central in terms of what has taken place. Of course, because we have government, there will be so many avenues to say we can compensate them. But honestly, I think as a party, we should remain consistent if the negotiation for the leadership of National Assembly is based on certain consideration. Those considerations should be upheld until the government is formed at all level. And then if there is need to adjust, you put everything on the table and renegotiate it.
Let's wrap up now. And this is my final question to you, Malam Lukman. How do you think your party should go forward from here? What do you think they should be doing? And how best do you think they should replace those that have, you said, voluntarily resigned?
No, I honestly think that the first is to activate those structures. And I'm aware as a National Working Committee, we are working on proposals so that first the National Executive Committee meet immediately and National Caucus, and also even inaugurate the National Advisory Council almost immediately without any further delay. And when that is done, unlike before when negotiation for the emergence of leaders of the party is controlled by one or two power blocks within the party, all power blocks. And in terms of power block, our constitution provides a situation where we are going to have women, youth, and persons with disability wings. And these are wings that are supposed to be structures that will participate, will mobilize those constituencies and will participate in negotiation process. In fact, they are expected to have their own leadership hierarchy. And as part of that, the youth leader, woman leader, and leader of persons with disability, in addition to the secretaries of the three wings, will be members of National Executive Committee. And through that, meetings of the organs of the party can properly accommodate all interests, and any decision with respect to how leaders emerge will accommodate all interests.
All right. Malam Saliu Lukman, thank you so much. He's the National Vice Chairman of the APC. Thank you so much indeed. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll take a break, everyone. And when we return, we'll go back to the conversation on the palliatives and the state of the nation. How much of money is in your pocket? What can you buy with it? What are you expecting from the federal government in respect of this palliative? Senator Shehu Sani, former federal lawmaker and a rights activist, will be joining us afterwards.
Oga, that madam dey outside, she don't come.
Our daily activities comes with different challenges. In a bid to accomplish your daily task, malaria has a way of getting you into distress. P-Alaxin anti-malaria keeps you capable and ensures you deliver against all odds.
Madam, madam.
I feel your face don't calm down. You like say malaria no work.
Malaria don't run. Thanks to P-Alaxin anti-malaria medicine.
I tell you.
Madam, thank you.
P-Alaxin, marketed by Greenlight Pharmaceuticals Limited. P-Alaxin defeats malaria.
In today's world, our lifestyle, both at work and at play, depends on connectivity. Our connectivity depends on the devices that make it possible, and these devices depend on electric power. When power fails, our life shrinks, our work drops, and our joy dips. JRB Solar Energy Systems are here to ensure that we enjoy uninterruptible power, uninterruptible joy. Whether you're running a business, an institution, or just a home you return daily to rest, JRB has got you covered. No project is too big for our super digital inverters, long-lasting batteries, and efficient solar panels. Go. Dream on. Change your world. JRB Solar Inverters, batteries, solar panels, solar streetlights, and more. Telephone 0906 752 1111. Email sales@jrbsolar.com. With JRB, the sun's gonna shine on everything you do.
The Duchess International Hospital opened its doors in October 2021. The mission of the hospital is to reverse medical tourism. We take particular care here at the Duchess to bring together a combination of the brightest and the best locally, as well as Nigerians in the diaspora who are interested in returning to do very good work for the benefit of our patients here in this country.
The good thing is that we have all international expertise here, all international facilities here, international people working here. Everything is coming together in a space which was considered not great in terms of the availability of healthcare.
Access Bank, of course, has been able to provide us with a robust range of products and services that has enabled us to deliver that standard and quality of healthcare that is integral to our mission as an organization.
So much, everyone, and welcome back. Senator Shehu Sani has since joined us as a former federal lawmaker, and could he be a former right activist? I call him distinguished comrade. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
What do you make of the backtrack of President Tinubu on this issue of palliative 8,000 naira? He said he heard what the Nigerians are saying, and for that reason, they are reviewing it. But if you look at what the NEC has come out with, it does look like there will be an out also, because they're still talking about social register. They will still give people, families, or households money. We need to know the full details of their plan. But when they're talking about social register, it does still look to me that we are still going back to what some Nigerians criticize. But in all of this, what are your initial reactions?
Well, thank you for having me in your program here. Well, I believe that at this time, the country, we have come to a near collective decision that the subsidy regime was a fraud, and it has been a drain pipe on our economy, and it has always served as a cesspool of corruption for a few rent-seeking Nigerians. Having said that, what this government has done differently was the courage and the boldness of removing the subsidy and being able to face the challenges that came along with it. But what was unfortunate and wrongly done was the fact that there supposed to be a clear layout plan on what should be done if this subsidy was removed. And I think we should also be clear, the past administration of Buhari never made provisions for subsidy. But having known that after the elections, when the winner was announced, within that space of a period, there is supposed to be a plan, a Marshall Plan, that there is bound to be consequences after this removal. And these are the plans that we have to tackle these issues. But it appears that immediately after the subsidy regime ended, then now they start thinking of what to do. And then the ridiculous idea of 8,000 naira came into the national discourse. And for anyone who is a citizen of this country or who is a close watcher of what is happening today, one knows that the idea of sharing stipend of 8,000, it's something that is, in fact, unacceptable and seems contemptuous when you put into tally the reality of inflation in the country and the number of people that will benefit from this stipend. So as far as I'm concerned, I have listened to the layout plan by the National Economic Council. But one thing that should be clearly avoided is that it's one thing to have a plan and then execution comes differently. I have also listened to the presentation by the governor of Anambra, Soludo, and what he said should be taken very seriously. Seriously in the sense that the states are not equal. There are some states that are highly in debt. There are some states that have not paid the salary of their staffs. There are some states that are owing contractors. So if you simply give out these funds to state governors, they may not like to expend the whole money on palliative. They will use a portion of it for palliatives while most of it will be used to address the problems which they have inherited. Many of these governors have inherited an empty treasury and pile of debt and contracts that have not been paid. So to me, if this is going to be very effective, there should be a separate structure set up in every state that will ensure that every kobo that goes to the issue of palliative goes down to the people. And we must avoid the mistakes of the last administration of sharing 10,000 naira, the N power and whatever. Where
you think that did not work?
We should avoid it because...
It didn't work.
It didn't work. If you look at it, it was meant to solve the problem of poverty. How many people were poor before the administration of Buhari and how many people end up being poor? In fact, the money that was shared by Buhari end up impoverishing the people more because you have 133 million people that are said to be in deeper poverty. So I think if we are to get these things right, structures specifically for palliatives should be given consideration. And then the increase in minimum wage is something that should also be done.
We understand that representatives of the World Bank was at that meeting, at the National Executive Council, Economic Council meeting today. And with what is on the ground, that money, the 800 million US dollars, the purpose by which World Bank has stipulated is for these conditional cash transfer or social safety net measures to help the poorest of the poor. Either Nigerians like it or not, it does look like there are plans to still give out this money. It is the money given to Nigeria by World Bank. How we're going to pay it is going to be our problem, our own headache. So if some Nigerians are criticizing giving out this handout, but it does look like the government is going ahead with it because they're already talking about peculiarities of the states, and the states having their own social register. The plans are being put in place.
Well, what I want you to understand is this, that palliatives palliatives are not enough to address the problems of poverty in this country. Well, even if you go by the layout plan, you share 8,000 or 20,000 naira to a number of people, let's say 20, 40 or 50 million for a period of time. Then what becomes of other Nigerians that are not within that cycle of beneficiaries? And also what will become of Nigerians after the expiration and the money has been exhausted? So to me, I believe that palliative measures should have both a short-term and long-term issues. And the long-term has to do with the issue of increase in wages of workers, at the same time assisting farmers to produce food and see how you can do something about public and agriculture. So I think these are issues. But as for the World Bank, I'm not very clear if that is a grant or if it's a loan. And if it is a loan, if it's a loan, then it would be suicidal for us to collect loan and share to people, and then nothing comes after that.
Isn't it apparent that that's what's going to happen?
Well, if the government goes ahead to borrow money to share, then it's not different from borrowing money to pay subsidy. So as far as I'm concerned, because it will be better if such money that is being borrowed from World Bank is being given as a sort of support for businesses that they can grow. But if you borrow money to share, then after the 12 months or 1.5 years has expired, will you still borrow money again to share to people, or what will you be able to do? So as far as I'm concerned, I think the government need to get these things right. And then something we should also avoid very well is that if you give out these monies to state governments, there should be a break and a check to ensure that it's not only the beneficiaries not only be members of the ruling political parties in the state and supporters of state governors. We must ensure that a structure that we have at the federal level is also replicated at the state level, that will reach out to all Nigerians that are available and then ensure that they benefit from this palliative. But if not, borrowing 800 million from World Bank and then sharing it to Nigerians, and then when it's done, what becomes of
the kind of scenario that played out during COVID, where there are palliatives and some of them stored and left to rot away in those people holding food items that should naturally have gone to people who were looking for food, who could not go to work, or wouldn't have jobs during COVID, were things that were nauseating, and one we ever thought that this should never happen in our country, where people are hungry, but you kept the food away from them. This food is supposed to be shared freely to people. But the question is, one thing got my attention, and you tweeted. On that tweet, you said, poverty used to be exclusively for the North. Now the government is making sure there is even spread, and no section of the country is marginalized. What do you mean by that?
Available statistics from both local and global bodies have time and again reflected an index of poverty at a higher level in northern Nigeria than it is at southern part of the country. But it is clear that the reforms program that is embarked by this government is coming with consequences, and that consequences also has to do with poverty. I am someone who has been an advocate of subsidy. We protested, we led protest, we joined protest for decades in defense of this subsidy. But at a time, people like me and others come to question that we have reached a point where government is borrowing to pay subsidy. So what should be done? And then the idea of subsidy should be removed, but there should be enough palliatives to address the consequences of subsidy. So as it is now on the ground, if you don't address the problems of poverty, it's likely going to spread. Most times when you ask an average Nigerian, and which part of the country is more impoverished than the other, I say the North. The North have more number of poor people. Well, it's a fact on the ground. But with the consequences of these reforms, if there are no palliative measures, if there is no immediate attempt to address the long-term effect of this removal of subsidy, poverty is likely to spread to southern part of Nigeria. It's not that the North is poor and the South is rich, but the number of poor people in the North is more than those in the southern part of Nigeria.
Senator, see what someone said on Twitter, because I was asking people to let us know what they're going through and what is happening in their neck of the wood. And Ashede Henry, at Henry Ashede, said and tweeted to me, he said, 8,000 naira palliative can only get 6 loaves of bread at 1,200 naira per loaf with a change of 800 naira. What can 6 loaves of bread do to a household of 5? Is that the reality of our country at the moment?
Well, you see, most members of the Nigerian ruling political elites are disconnected from the realities of their people. Their lifestyle is high. They spend in millions and billions to maintain a certain lifestyle. But they don't have the feel of what an ordinary man in the street, not just in the street, even their security men and their own housemates are going through. So to them, they think that 8,000 can address the problems of poverty, which is very ridiculous. Whoever sold this idea to the president and this government never meant well for the country as a whole. I think I was one of the first that simply made a sarcasm out of it, that how can a nation where people cannot even survive with 30,000 naira minimum wage be given 8,000 naira as, and I call it the Almajiranization of Nigeria, because if people will have to line up to be given 8,000 naira, which cannot buy anything, I think it is more or less to try to turn everyone into a beggar. I don't think this is the way out. And with the money that accrued out of the removal of this subsidy, there should be better ideas, more noble.
But I'm not sure the
thinking.
money is, in fact, even in the hands of anybody. Because the government, based on what the GMD of NNPCL said on this program, that government has been defaulting over the past month. They've not been paying for that subsidy. So the money does not exist in reality, except they've come out tomorrow to say the 400 billion naira per month is now coming in truth and is with the CBN. But, Senator, you're talking about tightening belts. Cutting cost of governance is part of the agenda of the next today. And they said they are advising and urging every strata of government to cut costs. Is that a reality that can happen? In the National Assembly, the state governors, the state governments, and elsewhere? Is it possible? Do you see that happening?
Well, from what we have seen on the ground in the last few weeks, it appears that the appeal for sacrifices is usually directed at the poor Nigerians. Cutting the cost of governance is something that we have not seen any indication from both the federal and state level. And at the same time, it is time the president should also ensure that the rich also make sacrifices. If he is really determined to address the socio-economic problems of this country, I think it should be across board. You have taken over power. Be bold enough to do what others have not done. You have been able to remove subsidy and the poor people are suffering. But there are people that have looted money in the last 8 years under Buhari administration. Go after them, retrieve those money. The cabal are known, the former governors are known, the former ministers of the government of Buhari are known to have institute probe and see where money is being looted and they retrieve it. But for now, it's only the poor that is making sacrifices and suffering. And there doesn't seem to be any indication of cutting costs of governance. Look at the convoys of the state governors, still the same. The presidential attitude doesn't show also cutting costs of governance. And you have seen also the budget with our colleagues at the National Assembly. These are all issues that need to be addressed. Let the poor see the rich also making sacrifices and cutting costs of governance on the side of government so that we know that everyone is here for the good of the country.
And this is perhaps how we anchor the situation now. Experts have said it might take another time. It will take some time before it can start easing. On average Nigerian, it's going to be a very difficult run. Where do we go from here? What do you think the government can do? Low-hanging fruit. I hope that they are selling. Can it work?
Well, in the last 8 years of Buhari administration, we have been living a life of falsehood and deception with the issue of subsidy. That was a man who came to power, and before he came to power, he has raised the issue of fraud in subsidy regime. And for 8 years, he was unable to remove that subsidy out of perhaps fear of the consequences of it or social uprising and perhaps a revolution. But this government has been able to do it. But the difference is that the pains should be limited and should be limited to a period of time, and then we see the benefit of it. And the pains should also be shared across the board, not only the poor. And anything you do for the purpose of making corrections or addressing the wrongs, if the pains are within a very limited period of time, is welcome. Under Buhari, the pain is that of cancer. And under Tinubu, perhaps the pain is that of chemotherapy. If this procedure will lead to a better Nigeria, then that is okay. But the people will not take this government seriously if they have seen that it's only the poor that are suffering.
Yeah.
And then the danger of hardships and suffering is that to reach a point where people will revolt. And that's not going to be in the best interest of any person in the position of authority or power.
We hope that things will ease for President Tinubu, who said, let the poor breathe, do not suffocate them. I hope that the poor of this country will not be suffocated and succor will come to them. Thank you so much indeed, Senator Shehu-Sani, I appreciate your time on the program tonight. But that's our show for tonight, everyone. I'll see you again tomorrow at 7 p.m. I'm Sean Akimale. God bless Nigeria.
You're operating here for over 12 years. And the system of the road this time around, over 3 years now, is too bad. To the point that a place that would take us for 5 minutes, it will take us for 5 hours.
This project was awarded in 2018 by the federal government to the Dangote Group, which will start off at the Apapa Port Gate, Creek Road, Tin Can Island, Beachland, and run through the Oworun-Shoki to the Ojota tollgate end of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. It is going to be the first major reconstruction since it was built in 1975. Today, the Dangote Group, with its partners, are fixing the roads with a long-term objective in mind. The company opted for the continuously reinforced concrete pavement, CRCP, in simple terms, concrete road. When the road is fully constructed, it will have 10 lanes, 5 on both sides, including drainage, rehabilitation of some of the bridges, and interchanges.
The pavement is designed to be maintenance-free for a minimum period of 30 years.
This design, though expensive, though of higher cost, but do you know what? By the time we are through with what we are doing today, it will outlive you. Because we are thinking of more than 40 years of lifespan. Even when the underlying material now fails for a very long time, the structure still remains.
What will it take